Hey there, Board Game Brody here with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table. Like this one, La Pâtisserie Rococo by Eagle Gryphon Games. It's time for the grand festival, and you're in France. Everyone is clamoring about the tantalizing and the delicious pastries for the event. And you represent pastry shops and chefs preparing for this occasion. And you will need to sell and show off, what you can do so that you can outdo your rivals and win prestige from the nobles. This is a game for 2 to 5 players with the base game, and each player starts with their own player board. This will keep track of your flour, your sugar, and your butter. Recipes are then placed in this place above here. Ingredients are placed over in this place on the right side of your player board. After baking a treat, it's placed on one of the 2 cooling racks, and if it's decorated, that decoration tile is used and is placed above it here. And eventually the decoration tiles will be placed off to this left side and used to gain bonus money or points throughout the game. The game is played over 4 rounds with 4 phases in each round, and the preparation, which is not done in the first round, or it is done, you just put all new tiles in each of these locations. But normally you would remove any ingredients on any of these 6 spots between rounds, and then you'll move the ingredients above down and replace the slots with new tiles from left to right, top to bottom. New recipes come out as well. Other than the first round, you will remove the 2 rightmost recipes, move all other recipes to the right, and then randomly place out new ones, filling in those different slots. That's phase 1, the preparation. Phase 2 is selecting your staff. At the beginning of the game, you will start with 4 staff cards, and you will pick them up, and those are your staff because you will need 4 of them to start. Now, from the second round on, you will have more staff, and you will secretly select 4 staff cards from the stack of unused staff. You will cycle through these cards, but it's important to keep them organized to know which ones you have used, which ones are unused in the unused staff deck, and which ones are in your hand, which should be 4 of them, and which ones are in your discard pile that will eventually come through and cycle through. If you don't have enough cards in your unused staff, then you will select the remaining to be placed into your hand, take your discard pile and make it your unused staff cards again, and then finish choosing your hand with the remaining cards that you need to get to the 4. This way you have to eventually use all your staffs without skipping over some and not using them all. If you have exactly 4 cards in the unused staff deck, then you take those 4 cards, and no need to move the discard pile over quite yet. Only when you need to gain one will you do that. These 4 staff cards will be used to take actions, plus the bonus action shown on their card. Now that you have 4, you will now select new staff. To do this, the first player takes the card from the staff deck and deals out cards in baking tray A, and deals out the amount of cards as the number of players in the game plus 2. After they have done this, then the player to the right of the start player deals out the same amount again to baking tray B. It's important to do first A and then B so that the cards come out how they should come out. The start player then takes the cards on baking tray A, looks at them, and keeps 1 to keep in their hand, now having 5 cards. They return the cards back to baking sheet for the next person to be shown by the arrows on that baking tray. This is clockwise in this group of cards. At the same time, the player to the right of the first player is picking a card from baking sheet B, and then it goes counterclockwise around the table with each player selecting 1 of them. So this will make your hand size 6 at this point. The staff cards are then to be selected 1 at a time. So if it comes to a player to choose, from both decks, they need to choose from 1 deck before looking at the other deck. There will be 4 cards remaining, 2 from each baking tray, and these are then placed face up in any order on the 4 higher staff spaces on the game board. Baking trays are then set aside for the next round. They're kind of done with. Each player again has 6 cards at this point and will now select 1 from their hand to discard out of the game, face down, no longer being played or used in this game, leaving each player with 5 cards in their hand. Now on to phase 3, which is the meat of the game, performing actions. Players take turns performing actions in a clockwise direction. If you still have a staff card on your turn, then you must play it and perform one main action, and then you can take the bonus action shown on that card, so 2 actions per turn. There are 9 different main actions that you can take. Your staff cards are all different, and some are shown, to be pastry chefs, designated with a P on the top left, and wearing a hat, where others are assistants. They're shown with a A on the top left and not wearing a hat. Pastry chefs cannot perform 2 of the 9 actions, which is acquiring ingredients and buying goods. Assistants cannot decorate or hire staff. After you perform your chosen main action, which I will go over here very soon, you can use the staff bonus action, which is shown on the bottom half of your chosen card. Some actions might refer to the training level of that card. This is shown on the top right. And some bonus actions can override normal requirements, like giving a certain pastry chef an action to acquire ingredients, which normally is not doable, but with that card it is. If and when you no longer have any staff cards, you will have to pass. Once everyone has emptied their hand of no more staff cards, then that phase ends. So let's go over these main actions so you kind of know what the meat of the game is. Acquire recipes. Here, performed by pastry chefs and assistants, you will choose 1 or 2 recipe tiles on the main display on the main board and pay its cost shown and place them face up on your player board. If at least 3 recipe spaces are empty on the main board, you will shift all the tiles to the right and place out new ones. You have a storage of 3 spaces on your player board at a time, and you can discard any of your tiles at any time if you would like to get other ones in. Acquire ingredients. This is only done by assistants, and you will choose 1 ingredient tile from the ingredient display on the game board, and you will pay its price and place it on the right side of your player board. There is no limit to how many of these you can have at a time, and the price is determined by how many ingredients are left in a row, and this is different from the top section versus the bottom section in that area. These tiles are only filled back in during the first phase of each round, so keep an eye on, what is available and what you want in there, because once it's taken for that round, you might not be able to have access to it. Buy goods. Only done by assistants. You will choose exactly 1 of the 3 types of goods, that's flour, sugar, or butter, and buy 1 or more units of that type. You'll pay the price shown on your player board and move your tracker up on its track according to how much that you bought. You can never have more units than what's shown on that track for each of those goods as well. Bake. This can be done by both assistants and pastry chefs. You can bake 1 or 2 pastry dishes at a time. You choose 1 of your recipes above your player board and spin the required raw materials by adjusting your goods markers and also discarding any ingredient tiles into the discard pile when used. A recipe shown with a P can only be done by a pastry chef. The recipe tile is then turned over, and it will be placed on the darker brown side and placed onto your empty cooling rack space on your player board. If there's no free cooling rack, then you cannot bake. To decorate. This can be performed by only pastry chefs. Here you can decorate 1 or 2 pastries that are on your cooling racks on your player board. To do this, you will need to use your available ingredient tiles on the right side of your player board. Hopefully you have one available that you can, use. And it has to be 1 topping for decoration. You will turn it over and place it above the cooling rack with the pastry dish that you want to decorate. Pastries don't need to be decorated if you don't want to, but if you do, you will gain bonuses seen on the left side of your player board, as we will see later. To deliver, this can be done by assistants and pastry chefs. You can deliver 1 or 2 pastry dishes from your cooling racks to sell to the public or to present them to the noble hosts. When selling, if you have a topping used to decorate that, you will place it on the topmost available space to the left side of your player board. This will help you gain bonuses. You can only now have a maximum of 5 decorations for bonuses to receive during the income phase, and you will receive those bonuses then. If you have more than 5, they are discarded without anything else really happening. The pastry dish is then discarded, and you will receive 5 coins for each prestige point shown on that dish. This is a good way to gain a lot of money, but in this way you do not gain any prestige points when selling. When presenting the dish to the nobles, you will place it in an empty space on one of the presentation tables. If there is a placement bonus, you immediately take it. This might be gaining coins or drawing ingredient tiles or gaining flour, sugar, or butter, whatever's listed there. And you will place one of your ownership markers in the circle on the pastry dish that you placed. And you'll gain the prestige points during the final scoring for that dish. There are table bonuses shown as well, and if your pastry dish matches the table bonus, then you will also take the bonus shown on that tile. But any dish can be placed on any table, even if it doesn't fulfill a table bonus. There are service spaces, and for each with your ownership marker adjacent to the table where you placed on, you can choose to pay 3 coins for each delivered pastry dish to gain 1 prestige point. If the dish has a topping tile, you will then place it on the left of your player board, the topmost, like I mentioned, and gain the bonus during the income phase. If there are no spaces on the presentation table's left, then you cannot present your dish and you must sell it instead. Hiring staff. Now, this is for the pastry chef only. You can take 1 staff card from the hire staff display or off the board with the star staff display that's placed out during setup. You will spend the cost to hire them and then place this card into your hand to be able to use. When taking from the hire staff display, the cost depends on the number of staff cards being present before you take one, and this is shown here on the board. If you hire a star staff card, you can do this with no cost, but you have to meet the requirements shown on that card. You also can only hire one of the star staff members throughout the entire game. You'll place an ownership marker on the reminder spaces to the left of the hire staff display to show that you've already made your one selection from the star staff area. Give notice. Assistants and pastry chefs can do this action. You will select a staff card and remove it from the game. Then you gain 4 coins for an assistant and 6 coins for a pastry chef. This is shown on the card, and you must always have at least 4 cards in your staff inventory at all times. Place service post or noble host. Assistants and or pastry chefs can do this. Here, you can place either a service post or a noble host. And for a service post, place one of your ownership markers onto an available service post space on the main game board. You cannot place your marker on a table that already has one of your own markers on it, and you will pay the coins equal to the amount shown in that space, and you will gain either the number of prestige points that's shown next to it for final scoring, or you will receive the immediate bonus that is shown next to it. Remember, doing this will also let you pay 3 coins each time you deliver a pastry dish to an adjacent table to gain 1 prestige. For the noble host, you place one of your ownership markers onto an unoccupied space of your choice on the game board, and you pay coins equal to the amount shown in that space. While playing, as soon as you've fulfilled a condition shown on one of the special bonus tiles on its display there, you may immediately place one of your ownership markers on the most valuable empty space on that tile. You will gain those prestige points at the end of the game. So it's kind of a race to be able to get those done first. And then going back to your staff cards, you can take its bonus action. So here are some examples. Gain 5 coins. Perform the buy goods action once. Perform the acquire ingredients action once and at the normal cost. Pay 2 coins once and get butter. Gain 2 coins for each of your pastry dishes on one table of your choice. Gain prestige points depending on the number of presentation tables with at least one of your pastry dishes on it. Draw 1 ingredient tile from the bag and keep it. Perform the place service post or noble host action once, paying 4 coins less than indicated on the board. Perform the bake action once, that is, bake only 1 recipe and then use 1 less flour or 1 less honey than required for that recipe. There is a list of each action in the rule book that you can visit to clarify, when it comes into play and what you really are doing for these actions. The last phase, though, is phase 4, and it's gain income phase. Here, each player gains a basic income of 5 coins shown on the top left of their player board, and then players can gain additional bonuses if they have topping tiles placed on the left side of their player board from successful decorations. These have to be placed from top to bottom with +2 coins, and then +3 coins, then +1 prestige, +1 prestige again, and then finally +2 prestige. In addition, for each host that you've placed in the upper left of the game board, you gain an additional income of 2 coins for each one that you've done. Play continues through these phases for 4 total rounds, and each round the start player marker is then passed clockwise, and then you will discard all staff cards that are still in the higher staff display on the game board. They are no longer available. Then the next round begins. After the 4th round, the game ends with final scoring. You will still gain income at the end of the last round, and then you will sell any remaining pastry dishes from your cooling racks and gain 5 coins for each prestige point next to it. You gain 1 prestige point then for each 10 coins that you have left. The 5 large presentation tables are then scored, and the players with the most and second most pastry dishes gain the prestige points listed on those. Points are indicated on the sign on the table. In a 2-player only game, only the player with the most pastry dishes will gain any points for those. Noble hosts are then scored. Points scored are equal to the number of opponents who have placed at least 1 service post ownership marker for each of your noble hosts. Finally, you will count the number of prestige points indicated from each of your ownership markers on pastry dishes and your service posts, your noble host spaces, and special bonus tiles. You will total all of that up, and the player with the most points wins the game. And well, that's La Pâtisserie Rococo by Eagle Gryphon Games. And this is another Rococo game using, a type of deck building used as your staff to play a streamlined-ish, family-friendly economic game. That's what they call it, but it's probably a little bit heavier than that, to make pastries. And you will gather ingredients, find recipes, bake pastries, sometimes decorating them on top, sometimes not, and either selling them for money or presenting them to the nobles for prestige points. It's a game where you will need to plan out some moves, make sure that you are prepared for the actions that you want to take in the future, because you will be using your bonus actions to do stuff, but you can only take advantage of those actions if you are ready to take them. For example, if you have a decoration bonus action, then you need to be ready with an ingredient to use to decorate with, and you also have to have a dish baked to be able to decorate it. The game is designed so that you are, somewhat cycling through your cards. You're getting better cards as the game progresses. Better cards can seem subjective in this game, but you will gain more cards that will give you points in the game if you use them right, that is. They might not be the right cards for you, but you can, find a card that will be good for what you're doing and what your choices are in the game to be able to take and do something better. So in the game, you're, juggling, you're figuring out how to take advantage of your cards, or having the right ingredients, having the recipes that will be, placed on the presentation tables that you want. You have 3 spots for recipes on your player board, 2 spots for the cooling dishes, and then you need to do something with those. Decorating will increase your revenue each game and eventually give you points through the games as well. The decorating can be important, and even more so if you have special bonus tiles that require them, or some of the staff that are the starred staff cards. Your dishes will be strategically made to be placed on the presentation tables to gain those bonuses, and also to have majority on those tables to gain those extra points at the end of the game. You're also sometimes juggling when you need, a pastry chef, as a lot of your cards tend to be assistants, and less of them are the pastry chefs. So that makes timing to decorating or hiring staff a little bit more difficult. But really, all actions are based off the basic 9 actions with some added variability or combination of other actions to make them stronger or different, or somehow make it, mesh together. I like how there are 2 decks with the players selecting from different directions to, quicken up the game, but also to give some players first chance at better cards and the other, first choice from the lower advanced cards. But then you have it also to make, a hard choice of then discarding one of those cards in your hand. I'd say we didn't take advantage of hiring staff while we played the game as much as we maybe should have, because you put that card in your hand. And essentially, if you do that and hire staff, you get another turn. So maybe we should have done that more. Now, you will need to visit the included reference sheet that's included in the game to look up and see, what the staff does, what the actions are to every time that you're selecting your cards at the beginning of the game. So when you are new, you will increase the time for gameplay. But with time, this can be learned and quicken up the game with time. So really the design is fun because of the staff cards, and you get to select them as you go through the game. The actions are not too complicated, but you will need to figure out how to plan out what to do and at what time. And that makes the game a little bit more complex than what the rules kind of show you. The table bonus tiles change each game. The special bonus tiles change. The staff cards change. So this helps with variability in the game. It's going to be a little bit different every time you play. The game board is double-sided, making it clear for when you're playing with 1 to 3 players on one side and 4 to 5 players on the other side. The components are great. The art looks good. Nothing to complain about for me, as it looks really crisp and good. I really need to play it more to kind of figure out how to play it better and figure out the better strategy. But I like what I see here. I like what the game does. It's a medium heavy game, I think, the sweet spot for me, because it doesn't get too complicated where, I don't want to put the effort into learning the game, but it requires some strategic skills to do well in the game. So it's a little bit more satisfying for me to play. Again, this is Brody with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table, like La Pâtisserie Rococo by Eagle Gryphon Games. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We are working hard to bring to you videos like this one, so you know if these games are ones that you want to get to your own table.